Hello, BookTube. We're back for another Friday with Friday Reads. And I have Mark here.
Well, Elvis is here too.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe Elvis will come on and say what he's read this week. D-Spot Run.
Well, I saw a book this week from a favored publisher of mine. You know, this Alma Classics, Alma Books, and they've got a collection called Dog Stories by Rudyard Kipling. And I was kind of thinking, oh, I wonder, maybe I should get that for Elvis. But the problem is, I often wonder if, worry if there's going to be anything sad about it, So
It's like, I just saw a meme or something like that where somebody was saying, if you watch, gruesome, true crime things about murder and all this kind of stuff, but then cannot watch a film about, cruelty to animals, you're my friend.
yeah, that's definitely me, though. I mean, I know it sounds awful. I have no problems when bad things happen to people. Children bothers me, of course, but even then, I have to confess, probably innocent animals getting hurt bothers me the most. So I just think it's because they're so innocent, So
Alan,
thanks, Alan. It's cold, man. That's why it's cold.
I'm looking good. Oh well, I guess I'm not dead, so I'm looking good. Not dead yet.
It's a bonus then.
Well, talking about children, that's right up the book that I read mostly this week.
Yeah, you and me both, I suppose.
Book. It's a wretched book.
It looks almost identical where the old bookmark is. So considering I've been reading this since the 1st of January, and you've been reading it since Sunday?
Late Sunday night.
It looks like we're almost. So, yeah.
Well, where are you? Like I'm at the Rue Plummet Idle and the Rue Saint Denis Epic, Part 4.
What page is that?
That's saying 739 for the text.
Yeah, I'm ahead of you then. I'm 779.
So I got a little bit. It'll be tomorrow before I get caught up. I'm reading about 100.
Although this I have to say is a bit fake because I moved the bookmark, but I'm not actually reading from it. I'm worried that I'm going to lie in bed because I lie there, I hold it up, and if I drop it, it's going to kill me. So I prefer to read it on the tablet.
Yeah, I saw Summer's thing. She's got this version with the, like you put, I think, a comment on there where if it's the wider white band, then it's more poorly made than these. But mine so far hasn't fallen apart. It's starting to, the laminate is starting to feel, but that's it.
Well, I mean, we don't know how rough Summer really is with her books, right? So she might be like bending it. I mean, you can't really bend Les Mis back, can you? You can't be just going to bend it back.
I didn't see any creases in the back, so I don't think.
True. No, I know she's very gentle with them, of course, but I don't know. Sometimes it can be bad luck. I guess they're glued. Maybe the glue has been damaged or something, or I don't know.
I got this, as I was saying to you. It was a funny thing because I wanted the Norman Denny translation as well, and it looked like the Black Penguin of it was sold out because this had come out. So, but it was still available in the classics, the cloth classics. So I bought that, and then I ordered this from Amazon, but got the Norman Denny translation because they still had it on like I guess on their shelves, and they never picked it up. Didn't.
Hey, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron. And so it's like I complained, and they gave me my money back. So I ordered this from another place. So I now have that. Well, now I got 3 Denny's. So, but this one is like, yeah, a fabulous translation. There's a lot of really good stuff in it, because I like the way she. And I don't think any of the others talk about, because we talked about this, the vous and tu in French. Like, it just doesn't, like I know how it works not how it works fully, because I don't know French, but I know it exists, but there's nothing in English language for it. So when you translate a word, how do you translate it to indicate that? And she does it in here, using the to expression or whatever. She'll add that when it's something out of the derogatory, not derogatory. What's the word?
Well, I mean, the best example in the book is when I think Fantine is somewhere in the street, isn't she? And people had been speaking to her as vous, so which is kind of the normal respectful term you would use with strangers or people older than you and that kind of stuff. And then suddenly, because now she's a prostitute and she's down on her luck and she's looking pretty rough, they start using tu, which is, I think, showing their real disregard for her, that she is definitely in a lower social status than they are. But it's common. It's common in I think most European language. I think obviously Spanish has it too, probably. I think, and Czech, we have it here. French we mentioned. Germans have it with du and z.
But to do it in English, like, it's just, when you translate, like, it doesn't come across unless you explain it. Or at least I don't think that there's anything in English that would really cover that, other than saying something derogatory, or another word that would have to be attached to it. And it's things like that where she's explaining that, which is really good, and the jokes. And at times where she doesn't translate stuff, she leaves it in and then explains how that is a pun, because there's homophones. Is that right? Yeah. The sounding.
I would have said homophones, but yeah.
Homophones, yeah. Or whatever. But it's the sounding, or, it's like, it's other things, like the word profit. You make money, profit, and there's profits, in the Bible. But you say profit, it's the same word. And Victor Hugo makes jokes about that. Like, there's little jokes and things like that. And obviously, if you translate whatever word, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. So, and that's the thing. It really makes me want to be able to read this, and to read Rabelais as well, because Rabelais does lots of stuff like that also.
In French, I mean.
Yeah.
So Brian's saying that isn't Les Mis, because I guess you want me to read the comments.
It's a little easier.
You can't see anything.
Well, I can see, but not that well at the moment.
Is it getting better? Is it coming back, or
no? Just for people who aren't sure, that I had some severe breathing difficulties a week and a half ago, I guess it was. And I get put on nebulizers, which is either salbutamol or Ventolin. But because I've had shingles twice in my left eye, it's damaged the trigeminal nerve. That can cause transient blindness in my left eye. And it has this time, because I was pumped full. I had a whole bunch of it for 10 hours. So I can't see out of my left eye now. So depth perception isn't the best. Reading sort of slows down. Anyway, that's the reason for it.
So Brian says, isn't Les Mis about a bishop and a Parisian sewer system or something like that? Smiley face. Something like that, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot more.
And a lot more. Sean has always gone on about it in the year or so. It's about a year, I guess, coming up to a year that I've really known him and interacted with him, and we started speaking. I suppose, going on about how much you liked it and all this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, I'll give it a go. And you're a big reason as to why I have decided to read it. And I find sometimes people tend to maybe overinflate their so-called favorite books. I mean, I'm probably a good example. I will tell you, Three Men in a Boat is probably the greatest book ever written. However, even I will now say that it is still a wonderful book, but I'm not even finished this one, and this is a book that's I could imagine it being something like a yearly or at least every 2 years reread for me, because it's magical. It's got everything you could want in a book. I think you've got just tons of side plots, as well as history lessons, social history, political commentary, everything. I mean, it is a masterpiece for sure.
Yeah, well, here's a little thing that's written by Hugo, and it's just the beginning of the thing. It basically explains what the book is. As long as through the workings of laws and customs there exists a damnation by society, artificially creating hells in the very midst of the civilization and complicating destiny, which is defined with a man-made fate, as long as the three problems of the age are not resolved: the debasement of men through proletarianization, the moral degradation of women through hunger, and the blighting of children by keeping them in darkness, as long as in certain strata social suffocation is possible. In other words, and from an even broader perspective, as long as there are ignorance and poverty on earth, books of this kind may serve some purpose. That's what it's about.
And the thing is, and it's right what he says, because none of that stuff has gone away. It's prevalent in our world in different ways, perhaps, or not as maybe not as obvious anymore. But it resonates. I think it really resonates today. I mean, I don't know, because you live in the UK, and when he's written about England, and I like the way he always takes pains to not criticize the English people, but he criticizes the English establishment. And the way he does that, and the things he says about it, I can't see anything's changed in England at all. Even with the poverty, it may have been better for a while, but now we're in the situation we're in again. It still resonates. The other day, I think, I can't remember if it was my father or Reddit, but someone was talking about a 97-year-old woman. She either froze to death or starved to death in her flat in the 21st century in the UK. Disgusting, and I think he is very much, well, what is he? He's a socialist. He's not a communist. He does go on about, you probably read the part on communism where he says the problem with communism is that it wants to distribute wealth, but it destroys the means of making wealth. And I think that's very apt. And he talks about equity, not equality, in wealth distribution, which is kind of interesting as well. And I just think he's an amazing person, and I really need to read about Victor Hugo.
Yeah, well,
he seems absolutely fascinating.
He ended up, I think, more socialist because he started out as a lot of times, or at various times, conservative. But after seeing things, and especially after the 1861 sort of the coup d'etat that Napoleon III sort of started, and he was exiled, and he started seeing, because it went backwards, because he was a Republican in many ways, wanted the egalite, fraternite, liberté, or whichever order it actually is. And the other thing is, like, people find this daunting because of the size, and then they hear these things about these long digressions into things, and I'm going, yes, some of them are digressions, but they're not digressions, because everything that is showing that he gives a reason why things are there that come up that affect the characters, and you get to see why that establishment is like that, why people are like that, and he doesn't. He does make a lot of pronouncements. Like he does preach a lot through it, to a certain extent. Well, quite a bit, but you do sort of follow that progression, and they're just not willy nilly put in there. It's like, I just reread, Count of Monte Cristo. All these other there's diversions there in a sense, because you get these stories of these other people, and these stories show why they're connected to everybody else, not just a sentence, but actually you get to see the depth that they're connected, and you see the depth that these people are connected and why they're like that.
I think Summer put it very well in her video yesterday. Summer from Sterling Reads. If you're watching and don't follow her, check her out. She says, about the digressions and whatnot, and how they are there. They do kind of remove you a little bit, like take you out of the story a little bit to then bring you back to the story. But she says they're interesting, and that's the key point. They are interesting.
Yeah.
So many people say they're boring and whatever, but I can't get enough of them. They're wonderful. They really are wonderful. I mean, for me, my favorite one's definitely so far the Waterloo one, because he spends ages, like basically refighting the Battle of Waterloo, describing in all detail all different things that happen there, and then it's just, isn't it? It's just like the last, like 3 sentences or something, or something like that, where he just introduces or reintroduces Thénardier as being there, and then you realize that entire part, was just build up for like a sentence at the end.
Yeah, because you could do that, but you wouldn't understand what the Thénardier has gone through as well, and why he's sort of the way he is to a certain extent. Because
the interesting thing about him is he steals. He's robbing Pontmercy, but he does save him.
Yes.
So that's he's obviously a very complicated character. They're all complicated. They're all, my favorite, even though she's absolutely horrific, is Ms. Madame Thénardier. The description of her in that book is brilliant. She has such a big, she just sounds a horrific person, but like even looking, and she's just full of these extremes. And this is what we were having when we were in the Voxer group, Sean. We were discussing why it is, and I don't think it's a spoiler, or maybe it is. If it is, if you're worried that it could be a spoiler, stop listening. But the bit when they're in the when Jean Valjean goes to the house to give the charity, and he meets them there, the Thénardiers, and he doesn't recognize them. Yeah. But you would think, the way Hugo describes Madame Thénardier in the in the part where he describes her, I mean, she is something you would never forget if you met her, and obviously he does. So I do notice there are a few. There are also quite a lot of happy or not so happy, but very convenient coincidences that occur through this book, which do take a certain leap in your disbelief suspension. However, I'm fine with it. It doesn't spoil it for me. But I suppose we should read some of the comments. Equity is the word used by people who like the sound of equality but can't stomach it being put into practice. Forgive my skepticism. I'm an unreconstructed Birkin. Well, I don't think Hugo's necessarily like that, because he's very much, on the side of the poor. I mean, the whole thing. Well, I suppose one black mark against him today would be he was a colonialist. He did believe in the civilizing aspect of imperialism to the point of bringing, law and order and things like that. But he was very much anti-death penalty, wasn't he? Yeah. He brings that in a few times. Omnipotent Aaron says, at omnipotent poobah. That reminds me of the old joke. A man goes to the British Library and asks for a copy of the French Constitution. The librarian replies, sorry, sir, but we don't keep periodicals. Oh, dear. Yes, we are discussing The Wretched or Les Miserables. So,
Yeah. Well, the other, yeah, that was the one thing I was going to say, that there are sort of very convenient things that sort of happen in here, uh, and you sort of go, well, it's done for the dramatic effect of the story, obviously, because it's like you've got to have this for the reveal, because we know that Marius, we know who his neighbors are, before the reveal. We know who they are. And again, too, it's sort of like, you'd think Cosette she would have, if he didn't recognize her, she would have recognized her for sure. Like I felt that, but him,
yeah, but she was, what was she? She was 7 years old. 8 years have passed. I mean,
yeah,
I
but
know it's traumatic, I suppose,
yeah,
but I don't know.
yeah, but you think one of
Well,
them was.
One of my favorite films, very modern for you, Sean. I think it's 1987, and it's Spielberg's rendition of Empire of the Sun by J.G. Ballard. Yeah, and I find it very moving. The end of that film, where Jim, he again, spoilers. Don't listen if you want to watch the film. It's a very good film, I think, anyway. But where Jim is reunited with his parents, and the way he touches his mother's face, because he says earlier on in the film, I can't remember my mother's face. But I suppose there's a difference maybe between you trying to conjure up the image and then being confronted with it, that you would probably recognize it. Do you know the book? Do you know the film, Sean? Does it make any? Maybe it doesn't mean anything to you?
No, I've seen the film, but
Okay. So,
I just
he's separated from his parents and he goes to a Japanese internment camp, prisoner of war camp, and he doesn't see his mother again till the end of the war. But there are moments in that where he's like, I can't remember what she looks like. So that's his mother. He's from I'm kind of talking myself out of it now, because I'm thinking the experience for Cosette living with the Thénardiers would be so traumatic. But then I think Sonia or Summer, one of the two, said in our group that she might have blocked it out. It would have been very traumatic for her, that she might have had some kind of mental block.
Did people do that then? That's my question.
People do what?
Block stuff out like that. That seems like a 20th century thing, but I don't know.
It's only now that we talk about it, maybe, whereas then they already didn't know. I don't know.
But no, getting back to the Empire,
you were there, Sean. You would know what they did back then. So
the Empire of the Sun, I just couldn't believe you said very good in the same sentence as Steven Spielberg. So I was going, what?
Well, look, you make enough films, one or two of them are going to be very good. It is a good film, Sean. Even you can see it. Surely it's a good. I mean, it's a good film.
Okay, yeah, no, it's just I have to point that out, though.
I'm not saying well, I don't know. Maybe for me, it is his best film. I don't know. This is the great French novel, though. I think Americans have been searching for theirs for over a century, but Hugo has it for La Belle France. Yeah, I think yes, probably. It really is. I don't think it's necessarily a great French novel, because, I mean, obviously we're not reading it in French. We are reading it in English. It is a great novel, and it's a great European novel, at least, because I think that experience, the social experience in terms of the extreme poverty and this class struggle and stuff, was probably one that was similar, if not the same, across all of Europe, I think.
Yeah, even in England. Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, talking about American one, I like one that gets missed for the 20th century is the USA trilogy, and I am blanking at the author's name. Sorry, for a great American novel for the 20th century. I think that's one. Never mind, because
where's Steve when you need him, right? The USA trilogy, I don't know it. I could Google it, I suppose.
I wanted to say Upton Sinclair, but I don't know if it's not Upton Sinclair.
Well, that's Babbitt or Bobbitt and
Dos Passos. Yes, thanks, Aaron. I do see that. Dos Passos.
yeah, there we go. Controversial choice of Dos Passos or
well, for the 20th century, because yeah, like I think, and it works for even all time. I think it's controversial because people don't. It's not widely read. They always read other things like The Great Gatsby, which I think is a bunch of drivel. In comparison.
what about Steinbeck?
Yeah, the Grapes of Wrath, I think, is definitely it's definitely the 30s novel. It's the Depression novel for sure. I can't think of anything else that matches that.
I know you. Do you like Steinbeck?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I quite like him too, from what I've read.
Yeah, because that was one of the books that we had to read at school, and it was the only book that I actually liked, and I was the only person that liked it.
Yeah, we had to read Of Mice and Men. It's all right. East of Eden is Alan's favorite Steinbeck.
See, yeah, that one I'd have to reread again, but I've reread The Grapes of Wrath several times, and it's I do like the books that because like he's got one page talking about the family, and then the next page is talking about sort of the social things that are going on and what other people are doing,
But he takes digressions as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, every other page in a sense.
Mm.
So that's and I really like that, and I guess I like that in books because there's so many that do that I like.
I think the first book in the first video I made on YouTube on BookTube was Steinbeck.
Which one?
Russian Journal.
Ah, okay, yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed it. And he came across as a great guy. It's a good book.
Yeah, I Mice and Men to me is not that great, but it's okay. It's like a couple hours reading, and you to go okay.
Yeah, it's a finish. I mean, it's very thin, isn't it? I mean, you can get through it, as you say, in a couple of hours easily. But it was all right. I mean, I read it. I was 13, 14, and it was good enough for me as, 13 or 14-year-old, and it stuck with me, and I enjoyed it. So,
well, I used to carry around garter snakes, live garter snakes in my pocket.
Not in your garter, then. It was Of Mice and Men when I was at school, though. The higher sets in English at my school read Animal Farm instead, which I would have preferred, and I'd already read it by that stage. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I don't think. Well, see, I'm against everybody's opinion about Orwell's Animal Farm in 1984. I think they're important books, but they're poorly written. They're not as well written as other ones that he's done. So
I'm trying to think what I had to do. What was this, Aaron? Was this GCSE? Because I was at school when I read it, but I didn't read it for school. I know some others did, but if it was GCSE,
what?
Some others read. I think Of Mice and Men was read by some classes. I don't remember.
Okay, all I was hearing was some others.
Some others have them.
Yeah.
Have them. I know for my GCSE, which is like 14 to 16 exams, I had to read Oliver Twist and Henry V.
I never. Well, I did Hamlet and Macbeth many times because they're just different schools or different teachers. They did the same thing.
And for A level, I had to read The Knight's Tale by Chaucer, Paradise Lost, books 9 and 10, I think, and Othello. Maybe something else. I can't remember, but
I detest the Lord of the Flies.
see, I read Lord of the Flies again through choice, and I didn't mind it.
Well, it might do that on my second reading. It's sort of like Catcher in the Rye. I just can't stand.
I didn't mind it, but I was like 19 or 20 when I read it, and I thought, yeah, it's all right. See, I don't know, I don't know, Alan. I don't know how old you are when you go to high school, but we had to read Julius Caesar when I was 13, an English class, and we actually went to the theater to watch it, and it was a really bizarre thing because they'd done it as 1930s mobsters. Well, it kind of worked. It was kind of good, but I can't remember. I think instead of stabbing him, he was gunned down, in the Senate. Yeah. So I did Henry V, yes, for GCSE.
Yeah, you see, I don't know what was done for grade 9 because I skipped grade 9 mostly. Or did I? Maybe I did grade 9 English, but I didn't do Shakespeare. Because I did three in a row basically of Macbeth, whichever it was, and one. Yeah, so I must have did grade 9. So it was just like I took one class, then I took a summer class for the next year, and it was Macbeth again. Then I took the next year's class, and it was Macbeth again.
I had that, but I had it with history and the Industrial Revolution. When I was at school in Bermuda, we'd started. So I was about 11 when I left. Yeah, so we'd started looking at the Industrial Revolution in history, and then when I'd moved to Sweden, they was in the British primary school. They were starting to look at the Industrial Revolution in history. Then when I moved to the kind of international school, because it was a British primary school, so I just got over the age. Believe it or not, they were starting the Industrial Revolution history. I was a bloody expert in the Industrial Revolution. Everything you needed to know about spinning jennies, I could have told you. And Thomas McAdam and all that lot. So yeah. So I agree with you, Sean. Words you don't hear very often. I enjoy Animal Farm in 1984, but Orwell is a better essayist. We had Lord of the Flies and Great Expectations set for our mock GCSEs. Yeah, I'm sure there's more that I'm missing, but I know the two texts definitely for GCSE were Oliver Twist and Henry V. But I know at A-level there was a lot more. I mean, A-level English, I really enjoyed it. We had a wonderful, albeit slightly mad teacher. Who?
Well, that's all best if you get a mad English teacher.
Well, he would like hide and stuff. Like you weren't sure where he was, and then he would be one of these ones. He would sit in his chair because there were only, at my school there were probably only, I think, 12 of us in the class, and so we would sit kind of like seminar style. We had the chairs with the little desk on where we could write and stuff. And he would sit in the center in this chair, and he would gradually get lower and lower and lower in the chair, and his legs would go further and further out, and he would be like really sitting there, discussing things. He was great, man. Shout out to Mr. Allison, wherever you are.
Heaven knows, Mr. Allison.
But he was, he was great. We had a couple of others. Like when he left and whatnot, and our other English teacher was a very nice guy, but he wasn't as eccentric. So, where are we? Ola Gareth. Okay, hiya mate. Gareth says 12 people in the class, 30 in my class. Yeah, it was boarding school, Gareth. So. There were two English classes in my year, but we weren't, we were split into different groups. So I guess there were probably around 25, 26 people maximum in the whole year that took English. So two classes of like 12, 13 people. Yeah.
Well, when I went to one school, they had classics still. And this was
we had classics.
Yeah, but that you said that was a private school. This was a public school.
Oh no, no. This was a public school.
Oh, okay.
But an English public school.
Oh, okay.
Whereas you mean a state school.
I mean a state school.
I mean an English version of
an English public school is a private school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But like mine was just a state school, like everybody went to, and they had classics. But I went there, I think, in grade 10, so therefore, or 11, or something like that. I went later, and it was too late for me to take Latin because you had to take it right from the beginning, and they were no longer doing it. They were phasing out the whole Latin and classics. But talking about not many people in class, I took all the classics that I could, and the maximum we had was 4 in a class. And grade 13, I think it was a grade 13 philosophy that I went in, because that would have been last year, but I wasn't in grade 13 yet. Greek and Roman philosophy. I think there was 3 maybe of us. There might have been 3.
Well, we had, for my geography A level, we had 6 people. And probably the biggest class I was in was history, which was maybe 16, I think. But yeah. But I do have to hand it to them, though, because, you know, there was one woman who did a long-term substitution while they were trying to replace Mr. Allison, because he left to become headmaster somewhere or other. And she was tasked with teaching us Chaucer. And I have to say, you know, it stuck. You know, I can pick up Chaucer and I feel fairly confident reading it even aloud, you know, despite obviously its differences. I remember the first time we were supposed to have looked at it over the summer break before we went back. And I think we were supposed to kind of like see what we could understand from like the introduction to the Knight's Tale or whatever. And I remember thinking, I'll just look at it the night before, and I'd never opened it, so I didn't have a clue that it was basically in a foreign language, kind of. And I thought, oh, crap, okay. There's a lot of words I don't understand in there, but I really enjoyed it, and they were so passionate. I mean, they really did have a great attitude. All of the teachers at that school, actually, they all had a passion for their subjects, which I think is really nice.
We should catch on some comments here.
Yes, sorry, before I get lost down memory lane. A levels are dire, Wuthering Heights, The French Lieutenant's Woman, and The Heart of the Matter, shockers. Doing 12th Night, and Tony and Cleo made up for that a bit. I quite like The Heart of the Matter, though.
Yeah, I did too. I'm sort of surprised that French Lieutenant's Woman was in there, but
my English teachers, like the rest of them, except for the headmaster and my history teacher, were less than pleasant and even less interested in the topic than the students. Well, that is, you see, that's a shame, Aaron, and that does have an impact for sure. Stephanie, hi guys. Hi, Stephanie. I had a mad professor in college. He was my classics professor and the most brilliant person I ever met. Definitely, I think brilliance and madness can often go hand in hand. Just look at Sean. One of the English teachers once said that she thought poetry was useless and shouldn't be taught. Okay, that's nice of her. I taught a class of 26 people last year, and it is hectic from a teacher's perspective. Yeah, I think it is difficult. But, you know, sometimes I think in Japan, they can have classes up to 40, which is horrific.
Yeah, I've been into like introductory classes at university where there were like over 100.
Yeah, but that's like the lecture, isn't it? It's
yeah. But then yeah, I'm close enough I can read that. So yeah, I in my archaeology classes, they were really small generally. There might have been 10, 8, 9, 10 at the most, but usually 3 or 4 people. It was really nice.
I think we had 6 of us in my university German class, which was nice. I taught community college English 101 and required electives, football players, etc., people who didn't want to be football players, etc., and people who didn't want to be it. I could see you doing that, Alan. I don't know why I could see you. I bet you had one of those tweed jackets with the patches on as well, and you went out for smoke breaks with the students. Easy peasy. Not for the bog standard comp I went to. This was school where we'd be told at least once a year we were the worst year every year. They said this to every year. Well, I can imagine. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about, because there was an interesting video that Andrew B made about a Guardian article.
Yeah, you've got to love the Guardian for providing booktube content. But yeah, Andrew made I enjoyed it. Video, I think I shared it, about this really pretentious journalist / author who was basically saying that what was it? Like it's a well, basically, to own books is a middle class luxury. You know, basically,
and it's a cult. It's a cult.
It's a cult, pretty much.
Yeah.
It was akin to hoarding, and it was selfishness because you are keeping books away from people who could otherwise enjoy them because you haven't read them yet. And this woman had decided she was giving all her books away. You know, which I don't know. And then she goes on about some Japanese terminology for uncluttered life. I can't remember what it is. And he was just taking it to pieces a bit, I think, and rightly so. And he termed these articles, what was it, bibliophobia?
Yeah, bibliophobia. That actually is a term because it has come up in the past with people. Like, I've got a book called The Fear of Books.
No, sorry, I didn't make that clear, Gareth. Andrew B is the booktuber who criticized the article. The article was written by some woman who was having a go at everybody else for being very pretentious, but she, wrote, I think, fairly pretentious article, and she's got some double-barreled surname.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, they've been putting out stuff like this before. Like, there was another one.
So she sounds like a plonker, rather.
Yeah. Another woman was writing that she got married to a guy that she can't believe it. Like, he's a hoarder. He's got 100 and some DVDs, and she wants him to get rid of them, because this is the 21st century. You don't need physical media. You could stream everything. It's like, no, you can't. One. And if you want the commentaries, you can't get those most of the time.
So I've been throwing Elvis's
toys. Boring? Am I boring?
No. I've been throwing Elvis's toys, and I realized that, like, I don't know, I've got a bit of mud or something on my finger because they get dirty when he's like chewing them and it's soaking wet. So yeah, I don't know.
But charming. Just there's lots of that stuff out there. But the one thing is that Andrew did mention really good was the thing is, like, creating this thing of saying how bad it is, but then going, oh, but I'm so good because I am giving these away. It's like it's this thing, you create something, or you don't even have to create something. You have to show your sadness for something to everybody else, otherwise you don't feel sad or something like that.
It's funny because I gave a book away today, and it's been sitting in my cupboard at work for almost 2 years, still in the envelope, from who sent it to me, because it was one of these things where they had sent me 2 copies. And they didn't need it sent back or whatever. And, I live obviously in a non-English speaking country. It's an English book, and I have colleagues and stuff who speak English very well, but they don't necessarily want to read in English, that kind of stuff. And then finally, you know, there's a young lad at school doing his teacher training. He's you know, he speaks very good English. He's going to teach maths and geography. The book is Blood River, I think it's called, Blood River, by Tim Butcher, about Africa. I can't remember, Central Africa or Congo. I haven't read it yet. But I thought, finally, you know, I've got a chance now to give it away to someone, because it's stupid. I mean, it's stupid. I don't need 2 copies of it, and it's sitting up there. And I thought, you know, but I felt good about it. So maybe she feels extra good giving away hundreds of books to people. But I think, you know, 1 book every couple of years is enough for me.
No, well, if you want to get rid of books or give books away, that's fine. But it's just like, yeah, give them to somebody who can use it. Like, I just know nobody who reads. That's the thing. Like, when I was working, it's like, you know, you could stack up books and people wouldn't go, what do I don't want that, you know. They'll take a DVD or something like that if it's the latest, you know, within the last 10 years. But if it's any film that's older than that, that's don't want that. That's old.
So yeah. Aaron's got the name, or he knows of whom we speak. The next comment, we can go back to Mr. Poobah, having read Rhiannon Lucy Coslitz. There you go. So it's actually probably double-barreled first name, I suppose. So I got that wrong. Yeah, she seems, but you know, it just annoys me that she suggests that everybody else is like,
well, what I want to know is
pretentious or whatever, and she does exactly what she's going on against in her own writing. So,
well, the thing is, like, what I'd want to interview and say, okay, how many shoes do you own? How many clothes do you own? You don't need.
I don't know, because her husband's a Buddhist, was brought up a Buddhist monk or something, she said. So he doesn't have. That's probably part of the reason.
Oh, but probably like, but I bet clothes are okay. Like, you know, those are exceptions. Like, you know, those are my clothes. Those are my shoes. Those are my, you know, ties that people say, or those are my, you know, dress shoe, like, you know, running shoes or whatever they call them now. You know.
Omnipotent Poobah says, if you do insist on reading The Guardian, you'll come across that sort of virtue signaling. Well, yes, but I do think it is the best paper still, even despite it. I can put up with some of this nonsense, you know, for the general other stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, it's this virtual signaling. I see it actually more. Everybody gets they seem to blame all these other things, like the leftists and people that call themselves leftists, but they're not actually left, and in reality. And I see it more for the other side, for conservatives.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't get that.
It's just, or better yet, is shelving them like this.
Yeah. Well, I had to stop myself yesterday. We have a little boy at school, and he borrowed from the library. We don't have a big library at school. We have just maybe 2 cabinets. They're locked. The kids have to ask us for the key. The boy borrowed the book, and then a little bit later, he puts it back. And I'm watching him do it, and he puts it back like that. And I'm thinking, why? Should I say something? And then I thought, well, maybe he's got his reason, you know. And all it was just so he could find it again when he next had a break, and he didn't want anyone else to take it.
Okay.
So I thought that was all right, but it was just funny, the urge within me to just be like, what are you doing, boy? You boy! Don't put the book that way around.
Stupid boy.
I kind of wish, I know it's awful in this day and age, but, you know, to have been a teacher back then in those days, I really would have enjoyed it. Screaming across the quadrangle, you boy! Walk! Damn it! Or just to use their surnames. Tompkins! Stand fast! What are you doing? Yes, sir!
Well, you don't know me. I wouldn't have said yes, sir.
You would have done if I was your teacher.
I never did any others.
You know, they Yeah. You never called your teachers sir?
No.
I don't even think I knew half my teachers' names when I was in primary school or whatever. It was always sir and miss
No.
or ma'am.
Yeah,
So,
but you see, that's English, and I think even Alan will say you don't. At least I don't think in American schools. I never called sir. You would never call them sir.
what do you call them?
Well, it would be sort of if their name was, it would be Mr. Smith or something like that, or Miss whatever, or Mrs.
Hey,
whatever.
Mr. Smith, eh? And what would they have called you then, Sean, or just Standfast?
The first name always.
See, yeah, I was often called by my surname. So
I remember there was a time when I must have been in grade 6 or 7 that we called each other by the surnames. The students, we called ourselves. There was a small period of time for some reason that we used their surnames, and I don't know why. And then it stopped. Yeah, in college, like in university, yeah, it's always first names, any regardless of whether they're a doctor or whatever, and the ones that insisted on becoming called the doctor, they usually wound up being Dr. Prick or something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm not getting into an argument, Aaron. I think this is very much anybody's personal choice. I meant it was the best for me. I can't stand most of the others. The Independent, I don't mind, I suppose, from time to time, but wouldn't catch me reading any of the others.
Yeah, I remember when they used to give away free DVDs occasionally with Thing for the Sun or the other papers. And I go.
Well, I used to buy the Sun when I was like 12 or 13, but it wasn't for the free DVDs.
Yeah, you didn't read anything in there.
Well, I would read something, but it was usually about, Stacy from Essex, and it was like 3 lines long or something.
But yeah,
like I always used to feel so naughty going in to buy the Sun. It's for somebody else.
But yeah, like I'd get the DVDs, but they never had them inside, so usually you had to go for a while. You had to go to W.H. Smith or somewhere else to get them. So I'd take the paper up, I'd pay for it, and I just wanted the DVD. So I'd either, if there was other people in the line behind me and somebody had the paper, I would ask them, are you interested in the DVD? No. And I said, well, here, take the paper. And they always got angry at me for doing that.
I can't remember. I didn't mind one of the. Might have been the Sunday Times. I might not have minded years ago. Used to get a lot of supplements and things with it. I can't remember if it's the Sunday Times or something else, but yeah. But
I like the Observer for our used to.
Yeah, the Observer was good.
Literary stuff and sorry, I'm getting a cramp in my foot, so I got to move around. There we go.
Do some star jumps.
What? Star jumps?
Some star jumps. I remember when they did a campaign about foreign property ownership in London that stopped when it was found the Guardian's building was foreign owned. Also, the current slavery podcast issue. I don't know about the slavery podcast issue. So what's that? They're complaining about slaves, and then they found out the Guardian actually owns some slaves, so they stopped complaining. I don't know. I agree with you, Muck. Thank you very much, Gareth. I always knew you were a very sensible person, but it's sad that most people relate to and buy crap like the Daily Mail. Agree. Well, page 3, Alan. Page 3. You don't even have to go very far into it.
Have they stopped that for the Sun, or
I'm surprised if they haven't tried to. I remember, and this probably dates me. It must have been sometime in the mid-90s. I'm sure, and if anyone else remembers tell me. I'm sure for a limited time, the Sun did have a stab at equality because they had the page 3 girl, and then they went for a page 8 mate, which was a guy. And I don't think I don't think it lasted very long, but they did have a go at it. No.
So they have stopped it. Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's why everything's gone down the toilet.
It's the end of civilization.
How did I never hear about it? You've got to, this is something where you expected people in Britain to take to the streets. This is more divisive than dare I say it, Brexit even. So, hey, Sonia. Unbelievable. They got rid of page 3. That is so unfair. Unbelievable.
Well, they used to have one, and it was the Toronto Sun, which was made the same way. It was like a tabloid style, and it had a page 3 girl, but she was always wearing a bikini or a swimsuit.
Well, I mean, she would always wear the briefs, though.
Yeah, well, no, this was the top.
Maybe not always wear them, but there was a side bit or whatever. But have they not thought about the women that were hurt by abolishing page 3? What is Stacey from Essex going to do now if she can't pose on page 3? That's just unfair. The podcast found the Guardian's founder had links to slavery, and the editors at the Guardian tried to bury it. Yeah, but I mean, who doesn't have links to slavery when you go back far enough? Probably. It's like, I don't know. These things just seem to. You can't blame today's people for the fact that their great grandparent might have had slaves. I don't get it. But I do disagree. I do disagree with them trying to bury it. That's for sure.
If you go into, like, there was somebody that I knew that used to work for, I won't say which bank, but a big UK bank.
Okay? Why won't you say which bank? They're going to sue you?
Well, okay, Lloyd's, TSB, I think it was.
Fine.
They've been around for a long time, and they have a lot of records. And in one of their, I was going to say Toronto, London branches, they had an archive. And if you look at it around certain times in the 1800s, there are stacks of books that if anybody had an extra shilling or even half a shilling, they invested in a slave ship. So every single person in the UK, pretty well, they invested in this stuff. If they and even these are people that were very poor, so everybody invested in slave ships. Everybody had an investment in it, and it's. So to say now that, it is horrible what was done, but the thing is, everybody's complicit. Their ancestors are complicit in it, but there's not too many of them. There's still some that still reap from that wealth, and most of them are in the conservative government. Or were in the conservative government.
Well, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, and I hope they don't sue. Well, I suppose it's your channel, Sean. So, but a big sugar producer in England that has 2 names, so and so and so and so. I'm pretty sure they had links to that trade as well, and thereby, it was like the biggest brand in England. So everybody who bought it, subsequently was supporting a business that once supported the slave trade.
Well, it's the same thing as like when you look at every country, like you can look at Germany with the creation of the Cyclone B. Companies are still in business today, and the ones that created the furnaces, because they made money, and they're still making money. Oh, we've been stopped. You froze.
Whoa, maybe.
Yeah, we've been rumbled.
Yeah, I think the Matrix is onto us there. So, anyway, changing topic, I suppose. We have presidential elections here in the Czech Republic. It's the second round of voting today and tomorrow. I always find it weird that the voting lasts 2 days. It's 24 hours in total. So it's like, well, it's not because we sleep and the polling booth closes at 10, but it's like from 2 till 10 on a Friday, and then from I don't know what time they open tomorrow, 8 or 9 till 2 on Saturday. And it's only, we're down to the last 2 candidates, so we should get a result fairly quickly tomorrow. But it's very divisive. I mean, one candidate has claimed that people have been threatening to assassinate him. His wife got sent a bullet in the post. Many people believe that he's just faking it because, you know, he wants sympathy and stuff like this. It's very interesting.
So what are their stances? Do you have
well, the
and, you know, moderate or something like that?
Well, yes. I mean, the president here is quite ceremonial, if you like. He's not going to have much power in terms of, you know, like an American president or a French president. But he will be, of course, the Czech face to the world, as it were. But he's the two of them. One is they always style him as the Czech Donald Trump because he's a billionaire popularist. He's the one who said that he's had the death threats and things made against him. He owns a lot of media and stuff like this. He was just acquitted in a corruption charge court case involving, like, I forget, embezzling money, I think, from the European Union and stuff like this. And he's still got a good chance of winning. He was also allegedly a member of the security services under communism. The other candidate he looks a bit like a movie star. He's like he's gray and has this beard, but he looks like kind of a Pierce Brosnan. Well, yeah, more a Pierce Brosnan than a ShawnDStandfast. Sorry, and he's an ex-army general, or maybe he's still a general. Well, he's still a general. They still call him a general, but he was like the number 2 in NATO. And you know, but the problem is, a lot of people are saying, you know, how sad is it that here we are 30 years since the end of communism, and, you know, the 2022 presidential election is really coming down to 2 people, which one of them is the worst communist or the best communist, depending how you look at it, right? So yeah, it's a bit weird. So most people in my social circle are hoping the general wins. A few other people want the other guy to win. I can't vote, so I don't really have too much of an opinion anymore.
Yeah, so. Well, I always find it funny where you mentioned that this one person's a billionaire populist, and it's like, you know, I can understand if they're a billionaire and you get other rich people liking them. But when they get people like Donald Trump, get people that are poor, that are dirt poor, liking them and thinking that they're doing for them, how fucking stupid are these people? Well, like, how stupid are they? Like, I have to say that. How stupid are they? You know, and in a real world, you want them to go, okay, go ahead, you deserve what you get.
Well, this guy's always said, you know, to be fair, like, in COVID and stuff, his government, when he was prime minister, spent a lot of money helping people. The problem was he never thought about how, you know, that money is going to end up being repaid and stuff. And so, you know, the current government has inherited this massive bill of things they've had to try and sort out, which of course is then passed back onto the people. But the funny thing was, today he was in the bookmakers put him on at 11-1. You know, so he wasn't a favorite. And he tweeted something like, well, you know, I always wanted to help the people. So get out there, put a bet on me, and then vote for me. Because, you know, if you put 1,000 crowns, so 30 quid or whatever, on me to win, and I win, you'll get 12,000 crowns or 300 quid or whatever, you know. And he said, that's my way of helping you. So the worst thing is like, now, are people going to be tempted to bet on him and then vote for him purely to just get some kind of extra money, you know? So
yes, there will be.
Some of them will be. We discussed it for a little bit at work because we thought, well, if we bet on him and he wins, it will at least alleviate some of the doom and gloom with the fact that he would have won, if that makes sense. So, you know. But as I say, personally, it doesn't really mean much to me because I haven't got a say in it. Anyway, sorry, the comments. The campaign to get rid of page 3 also tried to get rid of the grid girls in F1. Well, what about the ring girls in boxing? Do they still exist? There's a funny clip of a feminist arguing the girls lacked agency. Oh, he moved on. Agency to a couple of grid girls. Okay, right. Quote of the night: more Pierce Brosnan than Shawn'Sstandfast. Right? Yeah. I've only voted for president once, and it was in 2020 for Trump. I don't know, Sonia. Obviously, everyone is entitled to their opinions, who they vote for, and I think it's important that the right to vote is exercised, whether or not who you vote for. It's up to you. Yeah, this is Central European politics at its best, for sure. There's all sorts of things going on that I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on, because I don't. I don't really understand everything. I just have to get it all secondhand. But it's yeah.
So what do you need to do if you wanted to vote? What do you need to do there?
I have to become Czech.
Okay.
So for me, that would mean, I think in 2 years I would be able to apply for citizenship. But that means taking a test, of course. So, language. I've been here a long time, so you would think my language would be really good, but it isn't. It is really tough, And plus, I'm encouraged to not, speak Czech at work. So because they want the kids to be forced to speak to me in English. So although yes, of course, I can understand a lot and I can say things when I'm really pushed, I would feel very nervous even taking an exam in it. It's a difficult language.
Yeah, for me, I from a Commonwealth country, right from the get-go, I could vote, and I just that was on my visa, and I now am here permanent. I don't have citizenship, but I did have to go through an English test. And I had to do their sort of history test, and I remember I was asking people that were British friends, and I asked them to do the test, and I did the test without reading the book at all, and I didn't get enough, because you had to get more than 50%, but I got more than 50% on it, and most of everybody that did that got like 1 or 2 right, and that was it. And they were English.
Yeah, but they don't know.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, why do I need to know this then?
I know, it's ridiculous. But and I like to think of myself as fairly well educated, and I looked at some of those questions, and I had no idea, because some of them were ludicrous. It was like, how many teeth did King John have, for example? It was weird stuff. I didn't get it. No, it wasn't that obscure, but some of it was like really, some dates got to me as well.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I did pass, of course, but because I did it online, I did manage to get to cement my Britishness, I suppose, but I didn't get 100%. So.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that I got 100% when I actually did the test, because they said that they would tell me if I got anything wrong, and they never told me I got anything wrong.
So you haven't got close enough blood relation to just get citizenship?
No, you'd have to be a parent.
I thought a grandparent counted.
For permanent residency and coming here at ancestry visa, but only grandparents. You can get automatic passport and citizenship if a parent was British.
But you could play for England if you had an English grandparent. Like play football or rugby or cricket for England if you wanted to.
Possibly, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know what the rules are there. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But the thing that was interesting as well, and I've just lost that.
It was so interesting. It just went in and gone again.
I know what I can say. I don't have citizenship, but as I say, I can vote. Not everybody can vote that has permanent residency like I do. But because I come from a Commonwealth country, I can vote in every election. But I can't. But the only thing that I don't now, that I won't have, is an English passport. And since they've left the EU, what use is it? What use is an English passport for me?
I think you mean British passport. An English passport would be pretty useless.
Well, British passport then, or whatever you want to call
It's
it.
still pretty useless. Yeah, I agree.
It's like if
well, I mean, I'd be very happy to become a Czech. To be honest, I would of course then regain a European passport, but I wouldn't leave. I wouldn't be like, I'm heading off to a warmer country now.
Would you still be able to keep your British citizenship? Do they allow that in the Czech Republic?
I'm not sure if they do, but they can't really do anything about it, right? It's one of those things where you just, I don't know. They might do now. I know they allow dual EU citizenships, but I don't know. Is it Czech Republic or Czechia, or a distinction with no difference? I think it was this thing where they didn't like the fact that it's like, I don't know, using like an adjective. They thought it was the countries around it. You've got Slovakia, Slovenia, Croatia, these things, Austria, and they felt that the Czech Republic wasn't working maybe internationally, so they wanted to go with Czechia, and of course a lot of people don't like that. And one of the biggest things is they worry about the Americans because they think that the Americans will confuse Czechia with Chechnya. So, yeah.
Well, don't pronounce it Czechia then.
It is Czechia now. That is what it should be. I think it's even recognized as such under the UN and things, but yeah. Maybe he didn't. I helped a Nigerian friend with that test when I was at uni, and I was the only one of her British friends who actually knew the answers. Very good, Aaron. I'm going to hopefully get Irish citizenship with my maternal grandfather off the boat someday.
Yeah, I have no idea what their like. I suppose
that's why I thought for you British would be grandparents, because in Ireland a grandparent is enough.
Yeah, it may have been at some point here, but you couldn't. No, I couldn't. The thing was, when I was here on an ancestry visa, I couldn't live in the Channel Islands, nor could I live in, I guess what's that other little island off to the west?
What? Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, and Sark?
No.
The Isle of Man.
Yeah, the Isle of Man. But I don't know if I can now do that with permanent residency, or do you have to have citizenship to live there? But I suppose I could live in Northern Ireland. I should be able to.
You could live in Northern Ireland. Yeah, probably. Sick of gun violence here in America. It's a hard one. So at least Ireland is in better state these days. So at least you wouldn't be moving to North. You can imagine like 30 years ago saying, I'm sick of gun violence in America. I'm moving to Belfast. Worrying about the seems strange given that France is known in French as yeah, it's true. I don't think it was necessarily I don't know. I can't remember, but people didn't like it. I mean, it is Česká republika in Czech, so I don't see the problem. But I think also though the weird thing is that what a lot of people don't realize is that, but Czechia doesn't really address that issue, I suppose, is that the name. I mean, it used to be called the Czech lands. There was the Czech lands. There was all sorts of things, but the Czech part is only Bohemia. So if you like, the Czech Republic is divided into 3 distinct regions or areas, and it's Bohemia, Moravia, and Czech Silesia. Silesia is split between the Czech Republic and Poland, and it's just funny that only Bohemia, which in Czech is Czech. Am I making myself clear?
Sort of.
So Bohemia doesn't exist as a word in Czech, right? I don't know why it's Bohemia in English, but it's Czech. So Czech means Bohemia, or vice versa. Yeah, the area. So it's weird that they've taken the name of one of the parts, I suppose the bigger one, or at least the one with the capital in, for the name of the country. Before it was like Czechoslovakia, so you had Czech and Slovak. Now, if you like, on a smaller scale, it's Czechs, Moravians, and Silesians. But they've decided, to have the name that resonates only with. But then, of course, they're all Czech people, but they're, on different levels. They are Czechs and they're Moravians and they're Silesians as well. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just like, to me, it's like I do remember Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. They were countries before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So so at some point, maybe the Czech Republic will break up into 3 smaller countries.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. They're not, there's not that kind. I don't get the feeling there's any of that kind of rivalry. They dig each other, of course. I mean, everyone always says Moravians are friendlier than Bohemians, for example. And I have to say, I mean, I really love the Moravian capital, which is Brno. It is a very nice, friendly place. They talk about it being a big village, and it does have that feeling to it, I suppose. But then, it's the second city in this country, and it has a population of 300,000 people only. So
is Slovakia in the same situation? Is it split up into smaller ones, or was that the biggest area?
Well, I don't know how I can really classify it, because there's different states within all of the Czech Republic, but like those states fall within regions as well. I guess they were old kingdoms.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. Is Slovakia one of those regions, or is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Slovakia is probably more complicated because a lot of the lower part of Slovakia belonged to Hungary. So there was, I don't know if it still is, but there was definitely significant Hungarian speaking, and also in Hungary in the north, there's a significant Slovakian speaking minority as well.
Well,
I don't know exactly how they're split.
Could have been the good old days of the Austrian Empire.
Yeah. Well, because that's the funny thing. If you look at Michael Portillo's 1913 Bradshaw's, travel book, there's no Czech Republic. If you want to look up Prague, you have to look it up under Austria. So Stivonia, exactly. Yeah. Or Donohue, no, that would be much harder. Stivonia is a better one. So, yeah. But the funny thing is that the other guy running for president, the non-movie star looking gun, the names don't mean anything to you, so there's no point in saying. But he is Slovak as well, which is kind of funny, really.
So is he the billionaire one?
Yeah, the billionaire one, Slovak. Yeah.
So, how did he make his money?
Well, it was the wild east in the 90s, right? In the late 80s with the revolution and stuff. I don't know exactly how. I know he owns interests in like agrochemical businesses. He owns large parts of the media and things like that. But I don't actually know how he got started. I know he had links, as I said, allegedly. I will say allegedly. I kind of really hope he doesn't win now, because I could be in big trouble. But allegedly he had links, as I say, to security services like certain other further Eastern European leaders. So they might have helped with, business connections and things like that. But I don't really know. So,
well, that sort of reminded me. I've got a book here because of we mentioned Homage to Catalonia and the International Brigade. There's a great big book that I've got, the history of the International Brigade, and all these. They went there from all various countries. Like there were Czechs that went there and all this kind of stuff, and fought like against fascism. But then when they came back to their home countries, they became leaders under the Soviets. So it's like very strange.
yeah, I mean, but they were also ones who were, penalized for fighting with the British or the French once the communists came to power here, So it's strange all around, really. Czech history or history in all this part of the world. I don't know, Steve. Is that how he made his fortune? Using him? Yeah, probably. I don't know. I doubt it's something he'd want to advertise, probably, if it is the case.
Well, the thing in the early 90s, it'd be a lot of dodgy stuff, that's for sure, or potentially dodgy.
Well, they were able to buy businesses, weren't they, for like next to nothing, and it was definitely a good time to have connections.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they were state owned before, and then all of a sudden, oh, my good buddy here, we'll just sell it for a Czech crown,
Yeah. But I wonder if there has. I mean, how many other places have changed as much in Europe? Because I remember looking at. I can't remember who it was, but they were born in Austria-Hungary and died in the Czech Republic. It was It wasn't Herbert Lom. Herbert Lom was born in Austria-Hungary in the Czech lands. He was Czech, but he obviously died in England. But it must be one of the European countries that has changed the most in just a century in terms of what it's been known as. Austria-Hungary, Czechoslovakia, the Reichsprotectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, the Czechoslovak Soviet, what was it, Socialist Republic, Czechoslovakia again, the Czech Republic, now Czechia. So all within, the 100 years of its creation.
Well, you go back to this of France after the revolution. How many changes did they have back and forth? So it was just people that were, well, I'm a royalist. No, I'm an empirist.
But it wasn't like the name of the country changed all that often, right? No. So.
Question is,
must be a joke, no?
If you read that,
my dad worked in Russia in the 1990s and heard stories about hostile takeovers of businesses that involved AK-47 wielding men. Very possible and probable. There's a documentary series. I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I can't remember now who did it. It's on the BBC iPlayer. It's just a series, if you like, of from the BBC archives following the election or appointment of Gorbachev all the way through to Vladimir Putin's coming to power. Who on earth is the guy who did it? Documentary filmmaker. There's like 7 or 8 parts to it, and it's just like footage after footage after footage with some subtitles in there. There's no narration, but there's the larder factory, for example. Once Glasnost, Perestroika, whichever one, I can never remember which one, came into effect, there was all this corruption where the managers of the car factories were basically stealing the cars that were produced for no money and handing them off to criminal gangs, and then the criminal gangs started coming into the factory to get the first pickings of the cars, and people were being shot dead on the factory floor, like criminals shooting criminals on the factory floor to get hold of these larders. Would you believe? And this was even before the end of communism. So.
Yeah, well, it's just anything like that. It wasn't Hugo. It's Balzac. I think said something like, behind every fortune is a crime, or that's not the correct translation, but that's the essence of it, I think. So behind every fortune is a crime.
Well, that's what made me laugh, because they were talking today, friends of mine, and they were saying that, when I told you about the whole bookmakers thing with this, one of the presidential candidates, and how he's against gambling. So it's kind of ironic that, people are betting on him because he's vocally against gambling. But I'm thinking, how is it possible to be a billionaire and not gamble? Because half the business decisions and stuff you take are going to be gambles. Surely, it's odd. It's odd. I don't really understand it. But I can see you're looking a bit tired. I'm certainly feeling tired. We've been going an hour and a half. Should we call this an evening?
I think so, unless anybody else has anything to pipe in.
Yes. Nope. 5 minutes. Yeah, no? Okay. Any more questions?
Oh.
But Aaron, did he think he was a Chechen terrorist or a Czechian terrorist? Also, he nearly got shot by a Russian policeman who thought he was a Chechen terrorist when he accidentally pressed the basement button instead of the ground floor button in the lift. Oof. Dear, oh dear.
Well, it's a good thing that there's not an American wanting to go to the first floor in England.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Sonia. Hope you have a great day. Book review. I will look out for that then, Gareth.
So, yeah. So, thanks a lot, everybody, for stopping by.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Bye.